Hey, what's going on? This is Troy, and this is the Planet 76 podcast, your source for Sixers news, highlights, hot takes, and more. Welcome to the show. All right, Sixers fans, welcome in to another episode of Planet 76, episode 125 to be exact. I'm one of your co-hosts, Troy, and just a interesting sort of episode tonight. So the Sixers have lost 3 straight, all of which were games in which Embiid did not play in. Sixers picking up losses to the Knicks, Jazz, and Hawks. I recorded just a short episode a few days ago after the first 2 losses, both of which at home. But now one game has been played since then. It's against the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. And it was an overtime loss for the Sixers, a wild ending to that one. Maxey really taking over the game late fourth quarter, and somehow it went into overtime. It looked like Maxey might have gotten fouled on his game-winning shot attempt at the end of regulation, but it was not a call, and so it went to OT. And then Maxey fouled out with like a minute and a half left. So wild in that sense, and the Hawks just came out on top after that overtime. So kind of a disappointing loss, a disappointing stretch if we're being honest for the Sixers as of late, with 3 straight losses to drop to 23-13 on the season. But Embiid has missed significant time with his injury. I think no one really knew the severity of it. It's kind of in each game that's come, they've kind of just announced it. The day before that, Embiid's not going to play tomorrow. And it's the same case tonight as I record on Thursday night, the 11th. So Embiid's not going to be in the lineup tomorrow either against the Sacramento Kings at home at 7:30 on Friday. And so we'll see when Embiid returns. Obviously, the team misses him, and they're not the same without him. It's kind of the same story every year. We've been doing this podcast now for 3 years or however long, 125 episodes, and through that time and then the years before that, when Embiid's not on the floor, this Sixers team sometimes really, really struggles. And right now we're in one of those seasons. So we mentioned on the last episode that one of the Sixers' key primary issues, if you will, was beyond the three-point line against the New York Knicks, who outscored them by 36 just on threes alone in that contest. And then against the Atlanta Hawks, the score itself was 139-132 in overtime. But the Sixers, they did make 12 out of 34 threes, the exact same shooting numbers that the Atlanta Hawks had as well. Trae Young had 28 and 11. DeJounte Murray, who has lately been linked to the Sixers in some trade rumors. We'll get to that in just a minute. Again, a little bit longer of an episode than it was last time. But DeJounte Murray with 25, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. And so they did what they do. Jalen Johnson had 25 for them. He's averaging 15 on the year. Saddiq Bey had 15. So they had a lot of guys doing what they're supposed to do in the starting lineup. And then the Sixers, Tobias Harris did have a great game, 32 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Tyrese Maxey had 35 on 12 of 29, 4 of 11 from 3, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 4 steals in 43 minutes. But again, those 6 fouls that knocked him out of the game. And then, the Hawks were able to finish well in that last, minute and a half to 2 minutes. So 139-132 loss for the Sixers. And yeah, just, kind of an interesting stretch of basketball, stretch of the season that the Sixers find themselves in. Again, 23-13. So we'll see what happens moving forward when Embiid comes back, when Embiid gets healthy, and some other guys that have been in and out of the lineup. DeAnthony Melton made his return, to the lineup against the Hawks, but still no Covington, no Embiid, obviously. We got Nicholas Batum playing 37 minutes, scoring 6 points. DeAnthony Melton had 10 in his return, and Paul Reed in the starting lineup had 9. Marcus Morris Sr. had 17. He's actually, at times in certain games, been a bright spot. So his last couple games when he's been needed to step it up because of the absences of some guys. He had 15 and 17, 15 against Utah, 17 against the Atlanta Hawks. So you kind of like to see that. That's the one good thing that has come from this stretch. Embiid, on the other hand, has only about 7 or 8 games left to miss before he's ineligible for those postseason awards. I, for one, think that's a dumb rule. I don't think it's going to last. Now, as a Sixers fan, yes, but as an NBA fan, too, man, what's really the difference between a guy playing 65 games and 64 games? Well, it could be a whole lot of difference, when it comes to the end of these guys' careers. And you look back and say, well, he wasn't eligible this year, but, the guy who played one more game with him and maybe less minutes even, is eligible for those awards. I don't think it'll be a rule to last, but it is a rule this year. And so I don't know if Embiid will even be eligible for the MVP, and he's playing at an MVP level. If he'll be, eligible for first team, second team, whatever, All NBA. Because he has to play at least 65 games, and he's missed a lot of time right now in this stretch, and can only miss a few more between now and the end of the season, and we're not even to the All-Star break, so just into the new year. As far as what's wrong with the Sixers, so again, lose 3 straight, you lose 2 in a row at home. That's concerning, with or without Embiid. The biggest concern that I have is that we, even on Planet 76 here, have preached time and time again about the depth that this team has. And when Embiid's out and maybe another guy or two are out, they look like a whole different team. And when you have depth, you shouldn't. It should be plug and play, next man up mentality. And I get that it's Joel Embiid, but this just, again, as I mentioned a minute ago, this just reminds you of years past when, Joel's out, even out of the lineup for a certain time in games that he's playing in. It's just a world of difference. And sometimes that this team right now that we're watching gives a flavor of that as well. So you don't like that. You just wish that it wasn't the case. That's why he's the MVP. But, yeah, can't afford to have that guy missing games still, however many years later. So, again, a couple bright spots, though, would be Marcus Morris and what he's done over the last couple games. You like to see that. You like that you have Kelly Oubre back and playing. You like that DeAnthony Melton's back. Kelly Oubre still kind of in and out of the bench, or starting lineup. So, against Atlanta last night, he had a 7-point night in 32 minutes. So a little quiet from Kelly there. Patrick Beverley's been pretty solid, though, all season. He's been even vocal about his positive plus minus off the bench for the Sixers. He had 9 points on 3 or 4 shooting. Though last night it was a team low minus 15 for the Sixers. So couple other things before we take a look at the upcoming schedule. One, some potential trade targets. So the Sixers are still linked to some guys in the trade conversation. I think the more games that a team loses, or especially when you have the talent the Sixers have, and you have been linked to some guys already. When you drop 3 straight, trade talk is going to skyrocket, and so we're kind of seeing that in the rumor circle. And obviously, they've been linked to Zach LaVine. We've talked about that. They were previously linked, or wishfully linked, as Michael would say, wishfully to OG Anunoby, and that didn't work out. He's actually played very well in his start to his Knicks career. Other names that the Sixers are linked to now are Pascal Siakam, DeJounte Murray, who I mentioned again a minute ago with the Atlanta Hawks, and then, again, Zach LaVine. But we'll see what happens. The Atlanta Hawks are reportedly looking to reshape their roster a little bit. And so we'll see if DeJounte Murray will be on the move. We'll see if the Sixers have what it takes to acquire him and still keep, obviously, what they want intact with their current roster. Pascal Siakam, that's an interesting one. I don't know how well he fits. He's obviously very good, but, Michael and I, if the Raptors were in total rebuild mode, and we were, talking Pascal or OG Anunoby, OG Anunoby is the one that we thought is a logical fit for this team. I don't know how well Siakam fits, but Certainly could be worth something pursuing, and if it's the right price, then I'm sure the Sixers will pull the trigger. But we'll just have to wait and see on that. The trade deadline is less than a month away. It's crazy to believe that we're already in January, and the trade deadline of February 8th is fast approaching. We'll be here before we know it. So those are just a few potential trade targets. Now, full disclosure, you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows whether or not the Sixers are going to truly go after a star level player like one of those guys I just mentioned, or if they're just going to do some, roster rebuild around some other role players. Now, the latter of the two doesn't necessarily seem likely because of things I've already mentioned tonight in the depth that this team already possesses. So why are you going to trade role players for role players? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, unless you're getting somebody a little better than what you got right now. Sixers do have a lot of wing talent, wing depth. Patrick Beverley, I think, has played well enough to secure his spot moving forward. You got to like what the potential of what he brings in the playoffs too, behind Tyrese Maxey. So we'll just have to see. I don't know what I think. I certainly think the Sixers will pull the trigger if there's a deal that they want, and that's going to include shipping some of these guys off. But I've seen a few posts of the Sixers being linked to some other role players. I saw someone post another Sixers page, like 10 or 12 role players that the Sixers could go after. And to me, it's just kind of weird because they already have a lot of guys who are battling for minutes in the lineup. Now, I'm not saying that on February 8th, the Sixers team is going to look exactly how it does. Even if they don't trade away a star, there'll probably be some sort of trade away for a star. There'll probably be some sort of move. But I just don't know what that is. And we're going to have to be on the lookout over the next month. And as we get closer to the February 8th trade deadline, we'll see how the Sixers, where they sit at that point. So again, 23-13 right now, very much in the thick of things in the East. So the Celtics are 29-9. Very impressive. They got murdered by the Bucks by 30 points tonight. So the Bucks are now 2 games up on the Sixers, and the Sixers 4 back in the loss column of the Celtics. And then you got the Pacers, Knicks, and Cavaliers all tied at 22-15, all tied for 4th in the Eastern Conference behind them. So the top 3 dogs are where we thought they would be. Sixers have fallen again a little bit behind the other 2 now, but again, between now and the deadline, there's 20 games. And so we'll see where the Sixers sit then. And I do think that's going to make a difference as to what the Sixers are going to pursue. So let me count. There's 14 games at a real quick glance, 14 games between now and the February 8th trade deadline. So, if they're going to be making moves on deadline day, then how they fare over these next 14 is going to make a difference in that. If we go out here and go 5-9 over these 14 games, you can better believe that there's going to be a lot of talk about the Sixers need to go after another star. If we get Embiid back, get the boys back together and start playing well, and we go 10-4, 11-3 over these 14 games, some of that talk will subside. It's just the nature of the beast. That's what's going to happen if the Sixers play well. If they don't, the talk's going to ramp up. So we'll just have to see. So that's something to watch for over these next few games. I would say my advice would be to pay attention to how the Sixers play between now and the deadline, and then that'll kind of dictate how much trade talk there's going to be with the Sixers and the urgency that there is for a move to be made. I always go back to the year where Ben Simmons was sitting out and we hadn't acquired James Harden until the day of the trade deadline. And the reason that the Sixers waited that long was because of how well they were playing. Now, they knew they wanted to ship Ben Simmons off at some point, but they were playing so well they didn't have to make a deal for a lesser player in November or December. They could wait until the trade deadline. And so, that's always the kind of thing I compare it to. But we'll see what the Sixers do over these next few games and how they fare and how that's going to impact moving forward the situation regarding the trade deadline and some potential targets. Real quick, upcoming schedule again versus the Kings tomorrow night without Joel Embiid at the Wells Fargo Center. Friday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. They get a couple days off, and then they remain at home on Monday, Martin Luther King Day, 1:30 tip Eastern against the Rockets, and then they'll follow it up on a back-to-back against the Denver Nuggets on TNT, 7:30. We'll see if Embiid is available in that one. If he comes back against the Rockets, of course, that would mean playing in back-to-back games, so maybe he'll come back for the first time against the Denver Nuggets. Would love to see that. He and the Joker do battle at 7:30 on TNT on Tuesday. So those are the 3 upcoming games, and we will see you next time on Planet 76. This is episode 125. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.